when I think about the Atlanta hub for FinTech, I always think about payment processing. And I think that a lot of FinTech is around banking because there is such an opportunity, I think, for disruption in banking. Um, but where, I mean, because it's all about payments and how you can do payments, but there isn't, that's where it seems to be a lot of it. There's not a ton in wealth management. There's a little bit of innovation. You can think about robo advisors and such, but is it fair to say that, fintech really is kind of like bank tech from that standpoint? I mean, that's like the majority of it where it's really helping banks, or do you see it differently from your perspective? Because I'm just a naive, looking at it from an outsider perspective. You're on the inside.
Well, when I think about the genesis of fintech, it was really sort of in the mid 2000s going forward when the web started opening up the possibilities for decentralizing and then re-centralizing different parts of financial services. I would say that, the value of banking isn't, it never has been the bank itself. It isn't necessarily even the personal relationships. It's moving money from point A to point B and growing that money and protecting it. And you could do that with technology. And that's an awful lot of, what I've spent the last couple of years with what we built with, our firm. And, the value prop of fintech is to break apart this long-term sort of, monopoly on what banking services are. You have to remember, in the 70s and 80s, we had 26,000 banks serving the needs of this country alone. And that has whittled down to less than 9,000 if you include credit unions and less than 5,000 if you just look at banks. And then you think, how are we serving more people with fewer institutions? Well, fintech has stepped in, not just with payments, not with just, infrastructure and behind the scenes stuff, but front facing, across the board for lending, wealth management, consumer products of all kinds. And, there's so many more business models now that have really successfully driven the changes in banking. And, the best banks in terms of adapting those new sort of ways of doing things are the biggest 5 or 6 again, because these companies are investing in fintechs. They're learning from fintechs. And I think wealth management is doing that as well in some cases.